What's the worst character development you've seen on a TV show? Cleveland Brown from Family Guy was just your mild-mannered black neighbor who just went about his day. But then he got HK's own show and just became token idiot dad who fricks up everything, except now he's black and has a mustache. The Flash. After developing his speed and coming to peace with his mother's death after catching the killer, he still goes back in time and saves her, ruining everything that happened the last 2 seasons. Andy Bernard from The Office. They slowly made him from a character I hated to one of my favorites, only to completely ruin him in the last 2 seasons. So technically he was developed pretty well, but all that was ultimately destroyed. Season 3 Andy was such a fun, easy to dislike character. I would have liked him to stay more true to that. Kate from Lost started out as this strong, mysterious outlaw type character, until they needed her to be a love interest, where she became boy crazy and became completely uninteresting. Kate, don't do this thing. Kate does this thing. Insert conflict. It feels like Supernatural finally figured out how to grow their main characters after 14 seasons. The first few seasons the main guys grew and it culminated in season 5 with them averting the apocalypse thanks to that character growth. Then they didn't really do anything over the next 7 or 8 seasons. They just kept saving each other, sacrificing themselves, getting mad and moody, hiding things from each other, and generally repeating the same story over and over. Castiel and Crowley the Angel and Demon actually had some growth, but they would conveniently forget it if it helped the story. It seems like over the last couple seasons that the writers finally figured out how to make the 2 main characters actually seem like they've learned something over the last 13 years. Thank you. And I still feel like they wasted Crowley. Friends Season 1. Joey is not the smartest guy maybe, but he's charismatic and flirty and has a good read on people and knows what to say when his friends need to hear it. Friends Season 10. Joey is pretty much mentally challenged and it's stunning that he can manage to tie his shoes without assistance. He is a giant man bubby who needs mommy and daddy to watch him to keep him from eating glue. Barney from Heaven. He actually had some character development. That's what fricked me over the most the last season. They killed all of his development. The last season for Barney was great, and then the series finale happened and they fricked everyone over basically. God, how disappointing. Zach Addy in Bones. They jumped the shark so badly with that one, that actually jumping a shark would have made more sense. Not a lot of sense, but more. Yes, the suddenly I'm an axe crazy Freemason made me cry. Brian Griffin from Family Guy. He used to be the word of reason in the family, the one that saw the world with a more realistic approach, who brought a logical argument to the situation. Now he's an arrogant dong, one of the primary reasons I quit watching the show. I feel he's a mouthpiece for Seth. Sayid from Lost. It was like the writers couldn't figure out what to do with him, so they just kept cycling his redemption arc over and over again. He tortures because he needs to, finds a reason to be a better man, becomes a better man, tragedy strikes, he tortures people. This keeps cycling with 2 love interests, both in flashbacks and on the island, and other events until he ends up purposefully shooting a kid. I'm still salty he ended up with Shannon in the end. Off the top of my head, Cordelia from Buffy the Vampire Slayer Angel got shafted pretty hard. There was apparently some backstage drama when she became pregnant and announced to the writers a little late, so they had to do some last minute season storyline changes. She was the main female led up to that point and one of the original Buffy cast members all the way back to season 1, so basically a 7-year veteran of the verse. Her character was really headstrong, confident, mouthy, and take charge. But then they made this really weird decision to have her leave the mortal realm and follow this spirit guide who was telling her life on Earth was done and her purpose has been served. Yada yada. She literally just goes, I don't know what I'm doing, but I know it's right, and gets sucked up into heaven like a Christ figure. Then she returns to Earth with memory loss and sleeps with the male leads, Angel's teen son who she helped raise. Big ick. Everyone freaks out, including fans, wondering why she'd ever do that, but it turns out she was possessed by a deity when she went to heaven. She goes full arch-villain evil, is fully pregnant, and then gives birth to herself, the god. who then takes over the world. Cordelia, meanwhile, is simply left in a coma off screen as the show moves on. Word is she was fired over getting pregnant. It was something else. Yeah, seasons 3 and 4 were rough. Everything involving Connor was pretty ick. They even built up the whole deal with how Angel and Cordelia should become a couple in season 2, with the actual in-universe rationale that it would be epic, in the literal sense. Writers blew it hard on that one. Rory Gilmore. I still love the show, but the revamp set her up as a promiscuous, directionless, still letting men cheat on their significant others, and without all of the leadership qualities she had while at Yale. When the 7th season ended, she was independent and getting ready to become a journalist on a campaign trail. How did she end up unemployed and lazy? Nothing wrong with being promiscuous BTW, just saying that it wasn't really Rory's MO. She pretty much always just had serious relationships. The revamp was bad, but I feel like within the show itself, the second she decided to sleep with her married ex-boyfriend was the end of her being a decent character. She just does whatever she wants and lives the rich Ivy League kid life whilst loudly proclaiming that she's totally not one of those rich Ivy League kids. Brita went from a bit naive but intelligent to just stupid. Chang went from being a fraud who is awesome to just being stupid and crazy. They pretty much acknowledge that Greendale sucks the sanity from you. All the characters change into worse, but also better, versions of themselves. Principal Skinner. Just because they retconned his whole life basically. That just kinda ruins his character and is probably the worst character development ever. Jaime Lannister. He started out as a really hated character, but over time he developed this sense of honor and had a whole redemption arc. Then he slept with a girl that loved him, broke her heart, reversed all the previous 8 seasons of development, and died in the reversing. Eric Matthews in Boy Meets World. I still get irrationally angry every time I write about it. He was such a good character. He started out kind of meh as a rather shallow person in the first 1-2 seasons, but really grew into an interesting and funny character after that, walking a fine line between being dim-witted yet well-rounded. Even in season 6, he was believable as a real character. He had real human moments and connections with other characters, with Jack, Corey and even Sean. He even could be believably consider adopting Tommy. Then season 7 comes around and bam, he's a retard. Gone is the lovable goof with the big heart. He's now so dumb that it isn't even believable anymore that he'd be in college, let alone graduate. Heck, he wouldn't even be able to get dressed alone in the morning. I hated season 7 Eric. It makes most of the season unwatchable for me. I know most BMW fans love plays with squirrels, but I never liked that incarnation of the character. They fixed it a bit with Girl Meets World, even brought Tommy back. Most of the characters in SpongeBob, they made their personalities too extreme, not as subtle, even annoying sometimes. I think there's a term for this. Agreed. SpongeBob was immature, but he was still a young adult in the earlier seasons. In the later seasons it felt like he became more and more retarded. The show is mostly still watchable later on though. Shameless. All the characters just became whiny and wallowed in their own crap. Really started to dislike Debbie and Fiona. Kept waiting for Fiona to do something and Debbie is basically a rapist. Chang on Community. He started off as a snarky dude who always had entertaining cuts on others to just being a straight up evil dude. I think they even broke the fourth wall and mentioned it in one of the later seasons. Actually, a lot of characters on that show got more and more unbearable in the end. It was worse than that. If he just turned evil it would have been fine, but they also made him mentally retarded and pathetic as well, which ruined his character. Tyrese on The Walking Dead. I never read the comics, but from what I understand, he was a badass. He was Rick's second in command, but his portrayal on the show was nothing like that. He just seemed incapable and terrified of everything. I get that there would be people who couldn't cope during the zombie apocalypse, but he wasn't supposed to be one of them. I'm just saying that, when the governor and his people raided the prison, Tyrese was rescued by a group of 8-year-olds. His life was more BA in the comics, and his death was more respectable in the comics. But there's no greater drop off in character awesomeness than comics Andrea to show Andrea. Frick show Andrea. Andrea from Walking Dead. She shot one too many people in friendly fire, ruined season 3, and then got herself killed. She was terrible. CO John Bennett from Orange is the New Black. He's the guard that got Daya pregnant in one of the earlier seasons. He genuinely seemed to love her, was willing to take care of her, take care of the baby, and eventually take the blame and in general take responsibility. He even asked her to marry him. Then, in season 3 if I remember correctly, they needed an excuse for the character to leave the show, so they shoved in a flashback that showed that supposedly he's always been the kind of person to run away from responsibilities and made him ditch Daya when suddenly he realized that he can't go through with it. They had to think of something, but still, it was all very out of character. The only thing that I thought was really legit about it was that when he bounced, he was freaking gone. No Dear John letter, no phone call, no reconnect, no nothing. A crib on the side of the highway and a one-legged man leaving that crap behind. Tyrion Lannister, a smart and quite cunning dwarf whose wit goes to crap throughout season 7 and 8. I mean, I get everyone fails from time to time, but bloody heck what balls it was. Even if George R.R. Martin makes him this way, I really don't care. The character deserved better. Robin on How I Met Your Mother. I was very disappointed when they suddenly made her into a crazy person who was very loud and obnoxious. No one has cared you, Patrice. Ann Perkins from Parks and Recreation. Because she practically doesn't get any character development at all until OMG I want to have a bye. It's probably the only thing I dislike about the show. I have so many issues with that show, I just got around to watching them all. I'm too lazy to type out all of my opinions here, but a whole bunch of main characters didn't get any development until about 4 seasons in. That was the big one for me. Andy Bernard in The Office. He is excellent right up until the last season where he inexplicably becomes a huge, manipulative, jealous jerk. Past season 8 of Family Guy everyone starts to suck. Peter goes from a stupid but still loving father to a stupid butthole who doesn't do anything for anyone but himself. Lois goes from kind of a B to a complete B. Brian goes from kinda pretentious to full on butthole who takes advantage of other for his own gain. And also tells Meg God isn't real because she's ugly. You met Jesus, OMG. Meg is Meg. IDK much about Chris, really he hasn't been too involved in the newer episodes I've seen. Stewie is whatever. Everyone on Family Guy. Peter was a goofball drunk who had moments of genius between retardation which eventually devolves into a mentally handicapped prick. Louie, great mom, strong woman, supportive, devolves into an alcoholic narcissist who abuses her daughter mentally and is generally a B. Chris, growing kid with some stupidity, become his mentally retarded version of his father. Stewie, genius closet homosexual, becomes a gay brat. Brian, voice of reason with a bit of arrogance, becomes just an arrogant butthole man-whore with no saving qualities outside his friendship with Stewie. Meg, the fatty unpopular girl who becomes the abused daughter to the point of frustration to watch. Funny enough, the 3 friends are the biggest change. Joe, extremely strong and capable cripple cop dealing with his handicap but still proving he has what it takes, devolves into a depressed crybaby weirdo who just seems to tag along with his so-called friends. Even his marriage goes from happy to this depressed sham. Quagmire, the ladies' man with good advice when needed and a nice supporting adult for the kids when they need good advice, becomes a pervert butthole who thinks only about himself and his own gains to the point of trying to steal his friend's wife at any opportunity and being a pedophile. Cleveland, formerly Peter's best and oldest friend. The two were great buds and Cleveland was a good dude who provided the voice of reason for the group or just some funny out of context black jokes. Now he's a cuck failure who serves only as the butt of a few racist jokes or marital jokes while also being the second man if Peter ever needs to pull some dumb crap. There's a lot more detail to the changes each character underwent. I'm being really generous with my comparison, but if you take the original cast and compare it to what we have now, you'll notice the terrible drop in quality. That's all without mentioning how the gags were entirely funnier before. Daenerys Targaryen's descent into madness and villainy. It wasn't unexpected, but it was insanely poorly done. A handful of lines over the course of like 3 episodes isn't enough to make it feel legit at all. God, the cast of Once Upon a Time suffered from this so much. In particular, I'm going to single out Rumpelstiltskin Gold. He starts out as a fairly complex, Very interesting character played with nuance by Robert Carlyle. He's a cowardly addict with an addiction to his magic that hides behind his darkness. But there's a good man lurking within said characterization. Unlike Regina and other antagonists, there's a flair of noble demon to him. He never threatens children and honors his deals largely. He only uses magic when he has a purpose largely. The only time he really goes crazy is when someone attacks Belle, his girlfriend, or his son. Season 2 adds complexity to this characterization. He got his centuries of planning to work, but he's now stuck with a few problems from his magic addiction. Early in the season, he comes to the realization that magic has enabled his cowardice in many ways. He also learns to treat his son and girlfriend with respect, and that he really needs to strive to be a good man to earn their love. This arc culminates in season 3 winter finale, where he sacrificed himself and his magic, essentially his big fear at the start, in a heroic manner to save everyone in the town. Having decided he doesn't deserve his happy ending, ideally, this would be a great exit for his character. It's not. Instead, he's resurrected to be a slave for the rest of the season. Fine, you've got the actor, might as well use him. Unfortunately, they then kill off his son, which robs him from a major figure in his story arc. The season ends with Rumple being freed. He proposes to his girlfriend, gives her the dagger that controls him, and then later that night he sneaks out and kills the girl who killed his son, revealing the dagger he gave to his soon-to-be wife a fake. This is just sloppy. I'm not saying seasons 1-3 Rumple wouldn't have done that. Like I said, major tick for his character is someone harming his family, but giving Belle a fake dagger is sloppy writing. He wouldn't have offered it to her in the prior seasons if he wasn't going to really give it to her. It was heavily established that he did respect her. Could I see him making a poor choice to serve his magic addiction and then lie to her about it? Maybe. But he'd agonize over it. Instead, he waltzes out and spends the next season as a bad guy with no real explanation besides for the lulz. What's worse is this. His wife learns he lied to her. Angry, she banishes him far away. Half an arc later, he dies and is more or less reborn with a blank slate of a heart. He decides to use his new life to be a hero. Cue mid-season finale. Nope. He lied. He still wants to be the big bad magic guy for no apparent reason. And he's lying to his wife again. What starts as a genuinely equal, if unusual relationship with both characters growing turned into a domestic abuse nightmare where he is essentially a magic addict and she keeps going back to him no matter what. A waste of Robert Carlyle. Betty from Riverdale. Season 1. Curious, nice and shy, an easy to love character. Season 2. Badass, a tough girl who knew how to get her way through a murder. She could burn down a house and no one would know. Season 3. So obsessed with her dad and her evil side it's annoying. She went from lovable to plain annoying. Lily Reinhart deserves a better character. The kid that was the medical assistant on Bones. Then they made him the badass serial killer during the writer's strike. Worst writing on TV in decades. Kevin from The Office goes from a fat accountant who's a little on the slow side but still has some unconventional wisdom to a bumbling idiot incapable of basic addition and human interaction. Klaus Mikkelsen had impeccable character development for 4 seasons, from learning to diplomatically resolve conflict by emulating Elijah to inhibiting his impetuosity. His convoluted feelings towards his siblings, from possessiveness to resentment, all made progress and were resolved. His redemption arc as he acclimatizes to his role as a father and he discovered his capacity for empathy for his daughter were executed so well. It should have culminated in a self-sacrifice to secure his daughter's safety, with the Hollow being incapacitated by him. Oh no, we had to have the utter asinine double suicide with Elijah, who devoted his life to his brother redemption, simultaneously stabbed Klaus as Klaus reciprocated all his brother's love and tenacity with a stake through the heart, and they just disintegrated. It wasn't even poignant, it was resignation. 2 of the most formidable vampires who'd lived and whose family they'd spent over 1,000 years valiantly protecting were disregarded. It's even more ludicrous when Klaus earnestly vowed to protect his daughter. They even called his daughter Hope, with the implication the role of a father would redeem him. Redemption through death is the favorite device of an incompetent writer. Fear the Walking Dead. Season 3 was some of the best TV I've ever watched. Then, Season 4 happened. I never even finished it. OP, I think you might have been better to ask which Game of Thrones character had the worst development, because that's what you're gonna get. Also Night King. Mabel from Gravity Falls started off as pretty funny as she tried to have summer fun and boys. After that she just forces Dipper to stop anything he found fun when it was convenient to her. Felicity in Arrow went from a cute dork with quirky mannerisms to a raging butthole nobody likes. Positive is apparently the actor did not like the direction her character took either. Any TV show where they pick one of a character's main traits and dumb them down until they are that one single thing 24/7 every episode and have no depth to them anymore. Robin in Him. Early on, she's brash and rough around the edges, but in the last couple seasons she is for some reason always yelling and it never stops. Barney and Robin's relationship in How I Met Your Mother was completely pointless and time wasting. Knowing how the show was supposed to end makes it clear they were treading water. Everyone in The Big Bang Theory, although a lot of people don't like the show, I think the first couple of seasons were pretty good. It's unfortunate that they had to use the same joke 1000 times before finding a new joke that was somewhat funny and reuse that 1000 times. But the characters don't change in any good or funny way. In the first season Sheldon looks like he would kill someone for sitting in his seat. So why is he just okay with moving out of his apartment? Raj had okay development. He goes from not being able to talk to girls to being able to talk to girls to being helpless in any relationship to being obsessed with his dog. Howard is a perv after he gets married and becomes obsessed with space. They had to have some meaningful moment for Leonard, so they made it so a sentence is all it takes to get over his entire childhood, and they never have nerdy conversations or play games or anything. It went from kinda funny to a drama that tried but failed to be funny. Misty from Pokemon. She gets progressively more bad, but and then after she got to GP she turned into a scared maternal figure who would cower from danger and let Ash and Brock handle all danger. Weird. Jon Snow has to have one of the worst character arcs ever. The way it ended, the beginning and middle parts of it were good. I don't want it. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.